All right, welcome everyone to another Weekend No Show. We are back. I want to say that we're talking about a very special event in history. We are going to hear some probably coarse language in this one, and you might want to put the kids to bed. But before we get to that, I want to say what's up to my boy Insidious, LAT. What's up, man?
What's happening, people?
And last but not least, my boy CL Smooth. How you doing?
What's good? I don't think I ever gave my consent to be recorded. Did I ever sign any documents with that?
Yeah, I got all your paperwork here, man. I got everything. Oh, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, man. I got the non-compete.
Remember when we pricked our fingers with the blood? I think that's
yeah. I got all that stuff. So nice try, man. But anyway, back to the show. What we're going to be talking about today is the slap heard around the world, Will Smith versus Chris Rock, which we're bringing this up because, of course, Chris Rock just came out with his special Selective Outrage. And again, the Oscars is happening tonight, isn't it? So, yeah, very, very timely to bring this back up. And honestly, I think that LAT, what do you want to say about this? Let's break it down. Let's start with you, Matt.
So I got a couple of things I want to just jump off right off the bat. One, I enjoyed the show, but I didn't actually get to see the show before the show, and I kind of wish I had, because from what I saw, I saw what was a who's who of people who I'm pretty cool with. I think Kareem was up there, Yvonne Orji, Deion Cole, J.B. Smoove, Dana Carvey, Leslie Jones, that one dandy Asian dude who shows up on everything. I forget his name. And fucking Arsenio. I was more interested in the show before the show than I was in the actual special. That said, I watched the special and I enjoyed it. I have some, some issues with certain parts of it that, we could talk about. But yeah, just generally speaking, I enjoyed it. I always enjoy Chris Rock's comedy, and some of the things I didn't agree, but that's the nature of comedy. You don't always agree with the person, but he's an entertainer and he's doing his spiel, and I enjoyed it.
Okay. That's interesting, because as a counterpoint, I did not want to see a pre-show at all. I was like, get these dudes out of here. Let's get to it. And I didn't really appreciate it. So anyway, please continue.
But yeah, I'm going to let CL, get his initial words in.
Sure.
And then I have a couple of specific things that I'll bring up.
You just want me to talk next so you can interrupt me. I know what you're trying to do.
What are you talking about? I would never interrupt you.
See, you just did it. You just did.
This is a reverse interrupt. He actually asked you to speak.
Man, see, look at this. I know these games. First of all, man, Chris Rock is an icon. Like, he is an icon, and he's had some classic specials. A lot of people repeat lines that, who are not even what you'd probably call as part of the culture, but they know the lines, right? They become mainstream. So I really appreciate this dude. This was a good special. I mean, I wouldn't put it up there with one of his classics, but it was a good one. It was timely. We were all waiting for it. And I think he did what needed to be done, at the end of the special, in terms of setting things straight with Will Smith and Jada. I have some comments later on about Will's response to the special, but I was glad to see Chris Rock get back out there, man.
Yeah, and I have to say that Chris Rock, just from a business standpoint, remember, he was saving this whole time. He knew what he was doing. He immediately saw that there was a market value in this. And I believe there was some actual words from him to that effect, like, hey, I'm not talking about this until I get paid for it. And it turned into this blockbuster special. And, you have to admire the man's business savvy of turning this humiliation into a positive on his end.
Yeah. And maybe that explains one of my issues with it, is that a lot of the bits didn't seem that timely. I mean, come on, it was 2023. And he's doing Kardashian bits. So in that case, that was one of my issues, is that, like, you know what, dude, you've covered this territory already. And so I was a little disappointed, but also I get that when he prepared this, maybe that was still sort of in the zeitgeist and it was still kind of interesting. But you know, in 2023, we're kind of over. I mean, I think I am. I can't speak for everyone. But I think
Long
people are
been over
generally
there.
over the Kardashians. And I was like, why is he talking about this? But also, he was probably sitting on it for a couple of years. So, you know, it was probably timely when he initially came up with these bits, but a lot of it felt stale to me because, you know, as you just explained, you know, I guess he's been sitting on it for a while.
Yeah, that was the impression I got. Is that he was waiting for a good moment, and then Netflix. This was their first streaming special, right?
Okay.
And so that's what he, he managed to pull this off. So it's kind of another business savvy move. And I'm like, damn, can Will Smith slap me? I'll turn it into something, I guess. But
did he make like 40 million? Did he make? Was it 40 million they gave him?
Oh, I don't know.
I heard that's the number I heard, something like 40 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take a piece of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you guys something about Chris Rock. I mean, the dude is funny, but I have to say that his humor, it's always a bit negative. And which, when you're calling out these negative things, it makes sense. But sometimes the humor, like if you look at Dave Chappelle and he talks about these things and you're laughing, but somehow with Chris Rock, there's always an air of pessimism and negativity, which again, I can understand why that happens, but man, he really sometimes he really hits home with some of those bits like, oh God, I think that's why he's made such a good name for himself, because funny or not, you're like, oh man, no, it's true.
When you say negative, I mean, you talking about in his content or his delivery or both?
Yeah, his delivery, his mannerisms. He's always like, "Oh God, like, it's so terrible. Life is terrible. This is why this is so awful, and this is why this is so awful, and blah blah blah." And you're like, at some point, you're like, "Oh man, Chris, yeah, I know. Come on, man." And this is a guy who's a millionaire, a bazillionaire, and even he is like, "Oh man, this sucks."
I jokingly say that Chris is like my angry uncle now, and he's not that much older than me. I don't think. I mean, I don't know how old Chris Rock is, but for some reason, I feel like he's a peer of mine. And but he's coming off as sort of my angry uncle, which I guess everyone eventually becomes. But I was like, dude, you're kind of young to be giving off these angry uncle vibes. Especially, especially considering that, life can't be that hard for him. So
no, that's one of the things that I always thought too, is like, man, I mean, I guess everybody has problems. That's the thing, is your problems just go on to a different scale.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, man. That surprised me a little bit. I guess I never interpreted his comedy as angry. Was there a particular joke that stood out, or just kind of?
I wouldn't even say angry. Well, some of it's angry, but I mean, it's just so pessimistic.
Well, that the ending, the finale, the final bit was definitely angry, but that he was well within reason to be angry. He's been holding on to that, and I could see the anger coming out. I don't think he intended to throw out all those bitches that he called Jada, but the anger took over. I don't think that was his intention, but I think he just flowed with the anger. But I don't know if it was anger. It was just and I think we use this term a lot, but I mean it might. I think it's apt here. There was a lot of vitriol, not necessarily anger, but it was just.
Yes, yeah.
He just he just seemed, it was funny, but also it was like, dude, what's your beef? So, and I don't know exactly, but I think his railing against, what he calls selective outrage, for me, it felt like sort of a general anger with the way the world is, which I understand, but also the things that he was angry about were things that if I were in his position, that shit wouldn't even be on my radar, quite frankly, because I'd be too busy, being a millionaire to give a damn about Meghan Markle or any of the various things he talked about. So
see that didn't, I don't know, man. I didn't feel that as negative or angry, man. I mean, I think it just was like, I think the way I took it, perceived it, was like you talked about Markle, is that, here's this woman who, for a lot of people, a lot of women, is in a really privileged position, and I think he was just questioning why she's trying to, present herself as a victim so much. I think that was his point, but I didn't view it as particularly negative, but that's interesting that you guys feel that way. I didn't feel that.
So here's a little comment I wrote to myself when I watched it like the third time. I wrote, is Rock implicitly calling himself a victim because comedians are, he's not the only comedian that's upset that he can't say what he wants to say because he doesn't want to upset people, and I was like, well, you're talking about how victimhood is bad, but you're kind of playing the victim card right now, dude. It's like,
and he straight up literally says, I'm not going to be a victim. You're not going to see me on Oprah. I'm not going to be a victim.
But the whole special, Will Smith slap aside, was kind of how he's saying how, he started it by saying, oh, I don't want to upset anyone. And that's sort of, for me, it felt like he was, let me just say it. I'm a comedian and we can't say what we want to say anymore because of the culture. And I'm like, dude, accept the culture for what it is and say your fucking jokes. And, kind of like we said with Scott Adams, accept the consequences. Don't be all, woe is me, I can't say what I want to say. Say your shit. So, listen, I just throwing it out there, was he implicitly kind of, railing against victimhood, but also playing the victim card as a comedian?
I don't think it's playing.
Yes,
I don't
100%.
think it's playing the victim card.
Yeah, he was. He was.
You're both wrong. You're both wrong.
No, you're wrong, man. Two against one. Smooth is wrong. Cutting off his mic in 3, 2.
See, I'm gonna cancel my own show, man.
Get canceled, man.
Nah, man. Listen, look. He was, the way I took that is that it's almost like he was trolling everybody, and that he was calling out selective outrage, and you could view it as him kind of playing the victim. But what he's saying is, I can't even participate, really, and so that's why I think the whole, I'm not coming after anybody, don't cancel me. I felt like he was kind of trolling the whole culture that's doing that, and I think the audience that heard our Scott Adams battle, you should, or if you haven't heard it, you should go listen to that episode.
Please go listen. Subscribe and like.
Yeah, we go into things like censorship and being able to what is censorship and being able to deal with the consequences of your free speech. But I think he was just calling out what the reality is. We live in a society, right? And understand, I'm 100% with you guys on, we've got free speech, but there's also consequences to that. People are free to respond to your free speech. But we have a society that is becoming more and more and more sensitive, to the point we're on a path where you damn near won't be able to say anything. Let me make a point. I was reading an article this morning. This is a CNN article where the author is talking about how offended she is. She went to a restaurant and the waiter referred to her as ma'am, and she's like in her mid to late 20s, and she took offense to that. She's like, I'm not old. What are you calling me ma'am for? And the waiter's just trying to be respectful or whatever. But this is just part of a pattern where people are becoming more and more overly sensitive to anything that people say. If you want to be offended, it's really easy to find opportunities to be offended. Now I'm not saying offenses aren't given, but damn, man.
Was she really angry, or was she
She wrote an article about it, man, about the offense of the word ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard plenty of women do a mock outrage, like, "Oh, come on, I'm not a ma'am." But okay.
And I get a little taken aback when I'm on the West Coast. When people call me OG, I'm like, dude, I'm not quite O. I might be a G, but you can drop that O, homeboy. So I mean, I don't know. I haven't read it, but I mean, I don't know if she had true outrage, but I think she was just kind of doing what people do. It's just like, oh, times, oh, I guess I'm a ma'am now.
Well, Smooth, in the article, what did she recommend that the guy call her?
That's a good question.
Darling.
Come back to me on that.
Oh, okay.
Start calling women darling.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
That'll be the end of late night LAT.
So,
but
all right,
yeah.
Go ahead, JJ.
No, you had more. I know you had more. So go ahead.
Well, this is more of a, this isn't quite as serious what we were talking about. I don't want to, switch over from our serious talk to some dumb shit, but whatever. We can go back to serious. So, here's the thing, and this isn't just this, not just this special, but like I said, I've watched all of his specials. I even have a couple of them on my hard drive. So is it me or is Chris Rock obsessed with BJ's and ass eating?
That was a little wild.
That's new to me. I mean, this just went left. Big time. Whole thing just went sideways.
No, because think about it. In every one of his, not everyone, but I'm going to say 80% of his specials, there's always a bit on getting your dick sucked, which, I get it.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I can deal with that.
And even in Top 5, which is one of his movies that I actually enjoy a lot. There's a whole Gabrielle Union. She does, she basically, does Chris Rock. She does a whole thing about, the minute he gets home, what's the first thing I do? I suck your dick. And I was like, oh, I wonder who wrote that bit of, dialogue. And so I'm just like, which is, it's fine. Quentin Tarantino's obsessed with feet and Rock is obsessed with dick sucking. But also, like I said, during this last one, I'm like, you know what? One of the bits that made him famous was the whole jelly.
Yeah,
jelly
versus
Yeah.
salad, man.
And I'm like, is Rock just obsessed with ass eating and blowjobs? And if he is, that's fine. Do you? But I was like, that's a recurring theme in a lot of his comedy and movies.
Well, the last time I heard him talk about it was when there was that R. Kelly video, and he started talking about that. And I mean, he didn't bring that up. I mean, that awful video came out, and he was just talking about it.
Or he was like, yes, I can talk about ass eating.
I don't like this conversation. I don't like it. I'm feeling uncomfortable. So I think we got to change this.
I think you need to not be so selective in your outrage, because I've said terrible things from day one.
Well, I think YouTube's going to be selective in whether they let us post this or not.
Okay, well, in that case.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take this back.
Okay. All right. So I got one more. And then
okay. Thank God.
All right. So here's another point that a note that I wrote. I wrote, I was a black man dressed in all white on the stage railing against people's need for attention. I mean, I get it, it's his job, but he's literally the center of attention. And he's railing against
Chris Rock, man.
I don't have anything against him. I'm just coming up with interesting points to talk about, man. That's my guy.
No, but he makes a good point. He makes a good point there, because I always see actual celebrities and they decry social media and they decry these people who they're doing stuff for likes and I don't like social media because blah blah blah. It's like, well, these people are trying to become you. They want, you have all the attention, you have the adoration, and people are already talking to you. And then when someone else wants it, that's now wrong. That's wrong. God, what's wrong with people? They want attention. What is it? What is like? Follow the rules are for thee and not for me.
But I think he gave some examples. I don't know if it's the attention so much. It's what they're doing to get the attention. He did the bit with, in this last show where he talked about people get attention by literally showing their ass.
Yeah.
Doing something terrible to other people, having a real skill, and then there was a fourth one. I can't remember what the last one was. But he said, being being talented or developing a talent, having a skill is really, really hard. But you can just roll out of bed and show your ass, you know. So I thought that's the point they're making. Now, whether it's totally valid or not, you know, we could debate. But I think what him and maybe some other celebrities are saying is, look, I have real talent that I've crafted over years, and I'm capitalizing off that talent. Yes, through
And
your
many times
attention.
that's debatable of if they
Right, right.
actually
You know,
have talent.
you can debate that in different cases. But I think what he's saying now in the social media era is anybody's rolling out of bed, showing the ass, selling feet pics on OnlyFans, whatever it is, doing something wild and outrageous, you know, harming people, you know, in order to get attention.
Well, this ties back into Vel's earlier point, is that he's late with this. We don't, I mean, saying these things we already know. And so, you know, some of it was delivered in a funny way, but I also felt like, okay, yeah, Chris, we know this already. You know, this a lot of times his humor, it was so on point because it was an insight that, you know, ticked off a light bulb in your head. Like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. But a lot of times this one, I was like, yeah, Chris, I know. I know. Thank you. It was, you know, delivered in a funny manner, but all right. Get to the Will Smith stuff.
Right. Well, that's why it wasn't a classic, right? I mean, because it was funny, but it wasn't like so on point, so timely, so insightful that you're like, damn, I'm gonna be thinking about that for a while. So that's
Right.
why it's not a classic. It was good, it was solid, but it wasn't classic.
It wasn't Bring the Pain.
No,
Oh,
no.
For sure.
Yeah.
No.
Well, in many ways, I felt like it was a lot of sort of like, you know, Chris Rock's greatest hits and then Will Smith.
Right.
So yeah, like he recycled a couple of old jokes, you know, he updated them, but I was just like, oh, you've done this joke before. And so, but again, you know, let me keep saying this. I enjoyed it, but it felt like, you know, it felt like a compilation album with, you know, with a new single.
Right. Hey, Bill, you know, they dropped that really, really hot single, and you're like, oh, this album about to be fire. And then you get
Right.
the album, and you're like,
Yeah.
the album was all right, but
Yeah,
Right.
they blew everything they had on that
on
one
the
fire
single.
single.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I want to make sure we get into, you know, the slap itself. When I looked at, you know, we saw the Selective Outrage, and then you look at the response. Look at the response to it, where some people were upset about the slavery jokes that he made, and then I happened to see, of all things, you know, some insider of Will Smith's was saying Will apologized to Chris and would like for Chris to let it go.
Hell no.
Well, I'm sure he would.
Hell no.
What?
I hope
You
he
know,
keeps making jokes for the next year on this shit. He shouldn't let it go. And I'm
no,
sorry.
he
Go ahead,
should not
JG.
let it go. What, you know, that would be great if he would let it go, wouldn't it? For Will Smith. And why in the world would he do that? And it struck me. I went back and I looked at the actual the night of the slap, like he slaps Chris Rock, and then what happens? Diddy and Denzel Washington, you know, they descend on Will Smith, and they're like, "Oh man, we've got to keep him calm. We've got to talk to his brother, Bishop T.D. Jakes." And Denzel said, no, we prayed together. We prayed already. Then Bradley Cooper, of all people, runs up to Will Smith like, oh, God, we've got to, are you okay? Like, well, is he okay? He's the one who just slapped somebody. And of course, he goes on to get a standing ovation. And the article that I read was saying he talked for 5 minutes, which is way longer than you're supposed to be able to get. They let him talk for 5 minutes. He dips out. Goes to Dubai. Chris Rock does not press charges. The DA declines, you know, LA declines to press charges. And he just dips out, says he puts out that BS apology video, and then has the nerve to say, I wish Chris would just, you know, let it drop. Like, man, you out of your goddamn mind.
Right.
Yeah,
and, you know, it's here's the thing. What the? No, I almost started cussing because I'm starting to get into Chris Rock's head. But what did he expect? He's like, hey, comedian, don't use this experience this embarrassing experience that everyone's on. Don't use that as fodder. Get the fuck out of here, Will Smith. Come
right,
on,
yeah.
That's the basis of comedy, man, using real life shit. Sometimes painful.
Yeah.
Very.
I liked how Chris did say, though, he was like, people were like, did it hurt? It still hurts.
Yo, but if you go back and look at the slap, like, look, we can get into like how he responded, you know, should he have responded differently, whatever. But when you look at that, I mean, he did take that like a G, man.
He
You know
did.
what I mean? Like he didn't crumble. You know, like I was like, okay. I mean, if you're gonna let him up, I can slap you. I mean, I guess that's the way to do it.
I mean, if you look at like Jimmy Kimmel, who's hosting tonight, he was saying that Chris Rock took that. It was so professional, and he said, "Oh, his kids, his grandkids are going to be proud of the way that he handled that without descending into violence, and he kept the show going." And not me. I disagree. I'm like, no, dude, F the Oscars. And this isn't about the Oscar. This is about you. And I know Chris said that he didn't want to fight him because he was bigger than him. And I just don't know. I just couldn't. And you guys know I'm not a guy who's like an alpha male. I'm going to beat somebody up, but I don't think I could stand there and just take that. And I would have to descend the Oscars into a hot mess and then get my butt kicked later on or whatever. But no, I can't just stand there.
So that's also I put a little asterisk by don't fight in front of white people, because you know what's interesting about that? It reminded me of, and CL, I don't think you were there for it. I know you were there, John. So another brother wronged me back in college, and thanks to some investigative work by my friends, we found out who it was. And he was walking around campus like nothing had happened, even though we all knew what happened. And so one night, I was up in my feelings, and I was like, let's get this motherfucker. And the only reason that it didn't happen is that, there's a part in the back of my brain was like, do we need three brothers beating the shit out of another brother in front of all these fucking white people? And that is why that's why I didn't, just run up on the dude, because I knew, my homeboys had my back.
Wait, was this before I got there? I was there.
No, I think you were there, because here's the thing. I remember sitting there and it was all up to you, man, because I was like, man, if LA jumps off, there's nothing left to be done. We have to jump in here. And I was thinking, well, I'll be kicked out of here, then I'll probably have to apply to a different college. but the point was, I was like, if he moves, there's nothing else I can do. We gotta move. And it's just lucky you didn't, you decided to spare that dude. Somebody came up to me later, this girl we knew, and she was like, yeah, you guys were looking really scary that night. And I was like, you have no idea what was about to happen.
Yeah, and it's funny, like when he did that, I was like, I didn't think that was a good way to end it, but I also was like, I'm like, that touches me, because I was like, you know what? I don't know if it was my parents or just sort of the culture is like, you know what, dude, you don't want to. It's like if there was no audience here, that dude would have got his ass kicked. If we had caught him alone, I would have, I can't speak for JG or my other homeboy, but if it had been, in a nice quiet place with no cameras or witnesses, that dude would have got all kinds of foots up his ass.
Didn't you end up chasing that dude behind I think there was like kind of a little alleyway or something. I thought you ended up chasing that dude.
I didn't chase him per se. I just kind of followed him.
No, but he ran. I mean, that's kind of like chasing, as I recall.
We're going to have to get into this on the overtime podcast, because the overtime show, because I'm not remembering this episode, man. I need names and details, man.
Hey, what's the statute of limitations?
Well, I'll tell you this much. He stole my wallet and made some purchases on my American Express, because that's when brothers had credit. And he thought he got away with it, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you have to tell me off air about this. I don't remember. Man, I blocked out certain periods of time from my previous life, so sometimes good stories get lost in the mix, man.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man.
I was pretty enraged. And, I don't know if it was, an angel whispering in my ear, but, I went out with blood, and luckily I did not, do it, because, the bigger picture, I think something in the back of my mind was like, bigger picture, dude, bigger picture.
The thing is, man, like, so I need to go back and watch the slap again, but I feel like, damn, dude, you ain't never ducked before or took a step back? Let that dude smack you clean in your face?
I don't think he thought he was going to actually connect. I thought he was like, this is a bit. I don't
No,
think
this
Chris
he
was
thought this is Will Smith.
right.
He's
Yeah.
coming up here to grab the mic or something. He's going to grab the mic. He's going to yell at
or
me.
hug me. Yeah.
Yeah, or something. And then I think that slap was the last thing that he saw coming.
But look, I don't think most of us are fans of like just standing there and taking that. We would have done something different. But I think Rock is a smart dude, and I think he made quick calculations. One, he's probably like, I have no chance against this dude, right? And two, given that, if it really pops off on the stage, it's gonna be so much worse. It's gonna look so much worse. I could look even more foolish, get beat down even more. Now, I mean, that's not a great thing to say or to think, but I'm guessing that's probably part of the calculation that he made in terms of trying to stay professional. But I just can't. I wouldn't criticize him for any of that. We all would have handled things differently. But I think the focus should be on Will Smith. I mean, I think he could have done a whole episode on this dude in terms of his Selective Outrage special, and maybe that would have went across better, man. Because like, talk about disappointing, man. Disappointing as a man, as a brother, just like to do that, man. Like, damn, man. It hits on so many levels. You disrespected this dude on worldwide television, and I think Chris hit it on the head when he said, this was not about me. Slapping me was not about me. It was about Will Smith getting disrespected by his wife again, for the whole world to see. And then this dude finally exploding and taking it out on someone that he
and not only his wife, like he said, everyone was calling Will Smith a bitch.
Yeah.
When the whole red table talk or all this stuff came out, everybody was dogging his dude, but he couldn't fight back against all these people. And finally, he took it out, like Chris said, on the one guy he knew he could beat.
Right. And one last quick point, a little preview for our next show where we talk about simping ain't easy. People, what you saw with Will Smith, and I know Will Smith has always been kind of like considered a little bit corny, you know what I'm saying? But I always really respected the dude and where he came from and what he accomplished and all that kind of stuff. But I think that behavior, what he did to Chris Rock on stage, is an offshoot of that simping behavior, man. And we're gonna get into that on another podcast. But stay tuned for that. That's the real dark side of what happens to simping behavior, because there's a philosophy that strong men, strong people, strong of character are good people, and weak people are people of low character and do bad things. And I'm not saying Will Smith is a bad person, but he showed real weak character there, and I think it's tied to his simping behavior, and then you see the behavior that came from that. So anyway, that's all. Yeah. That's on for another show.
I'm gonna apologize to the world ahead of time, but are you saying that we shouldn't show Will Smith any sympathy?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh no.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we should show him a lot of sympathy, man. Let me tell you, I think he could have redeemed himself had he, and I can't really say that I watched any of his apology, too in-depthly, but, a sincere apology, but he needed to make some changes in his life, man, right? Because he's still seen as up under Jada Pinkett's skirt, so to speak, and this is not dissing women at all, but he took his anger out on another man, and he's not handling the situation in his own life. And that would have been an opportunity for him to redeem himself in my eyes. And he didn't take it. Now he comes out with this, I don't know if it's an official statement or it's through an intermediary or whatever, that he just wishes Chris Rock would move on. Hell nah, man. You smacked this dude on live television, embarrassed him, his family, his crew, everyone, right? A brother in front of everyone in the world, right? We get enough disrespect. And you want him to just move on? Nah, bro. You ain't paid enough yet. You ain't paid enough yet.
No, hell no.
Rock should continue with the comedy specials. But no. I got one more for y'all. That's what he should do.
So I have a I don't know, a question, I guess. I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but is it? Yeah, I guess it is a question. is it our duty to sort of keep everything in house? So there are those who argue that, you know what, granted, we all know that was just Will, acting out. But was it good that Chris, kept his cool because he's like, you know what, we don't need to, we as Black folks, we don't need to be out here fighting in front of everybody. If we're gonna do something like that, we do it, we do it at home, or we do it in private,
off camera. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an argument for that.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think the opposite. Whereas he has he's a man who is responsible for himself, and he doesn't have to carry all that on himself. To me, it's like if for him to live with this, somebody slapped him, and he needs to, respond and get in their face and get after him, then so be it. And anybody saying, "Oh, he should have, done this for the Black race or done this to help," no. He was the one who was slapped. He was the one who was slapped. And to me, you determine how you're going to respond to that. It may be the right thing to do. It may be the wrong thing to do. But no, you don't have to think about keeping it in house. As far as I'm concerned, that's why I can't go along with any of those statements about how he maintained the integrity of the Oscars. It's like, I don't give a damn about that, man. To hell with that.
Integrity.
He was an excellent showman. He kept the show going. No, F the show. F the show. Man, get your self-esteem back, or get a shot in, get something. Even if you get your butt kicked, get a shot in that you can. If you get your butt kicked, you're like, well, I got that one shot at least. Then something.
Then the Oscars turns into the Source Awards. Not that there's anything wrong with the Source Awards.
Not this time, because Jimmy Kimmel said that he will beat the shit out of anybody who comes up there.
Jimmy Kimmel's a big guy too.
He kind of is big.
Man, but the other thing we should talk about is, and you mentioned it, JG, is that these guys, Will Smith talked about it. They gave him a standing ovation. You talked about Denzel and others coming over and be like, "Are you all right? Let's pray with you." What's going on in our society, man? This dude got on stage and smacked another dude, and you have people come out on social media afterwards talking about, well, he was just defending Jada's honor. Jada started this whole thing, and you don't start shit with a comedian, man. Okay, unless you got some arrows, some missiles of your own. You don't start something with a comedian, man, unless you know what you're doing. And he, like he said in the special, and he finished it. That's why you also don't sit up front in a comedy show unless you are prepared. Like, we all know this, man.
Never ever sit up front.
No.
Right?
I'm not trying to ever get roasted.
If you can't take a joke, right? And look, don't nobody want to be made fun of, man. Nobody really enjoys that. But no, come on, man. Come on. You old enough to know if you sit up front in a comedy show, hey man, you put yourself at risk. If you go after a comedian, you're putting yourself at risk.
No, this is definitely another episode, but I have a real problem with, they call it crowd work. Like, listen, I came here to watch you perform. Keep your comments about me. I get it. I mean, I don't sit up front, but just generally speaking, whenever I see comedians do, quote unquote crowd work, it kind of annoys me a little bit, because I'm like, listen, those people didn't come there to get roasted. They came there to get entertained. So, how about you tell your fucking yucks and leave those people alone?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it took what, half an hour, but Curmudgeon Vale is back. I was waiting for it. No, I think you're right, man. I mean, like, I'm thinking more of those hecklers in the crowd. I like when they get them, but I think you have a legit point. But we know what it is, man. The comedians, like, especially if they searching for material, they'll start picking people out the crowd.
Yeah, those are the ones who don't. They're like, they know they don't have enough material for the whole show,
right?
So they're hoping somebody comes in there dressed like a fool or something.
Again, I think we could dedicate an actual episode to it. But I have a list of things that you don't want to do at a comedy show. You don't want to be a mixed race couple. No. You don't want to wear any loud colors. There's just a whole bunch of things that, if I ever go to a comedy show, I'm just like, you know what, Lavelle, Do not wear the red.
Right.
Yeah,
How to
yeah,
survive your
exactly.
first comedy show.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know who I think did it really well and rest in peace. Y'all familiar with Patrice O'Neal?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
He was vicious though.
Yeah, but you know, the comedy show I saw from him, he wove in the people in the crowd with his bit. You know what I'm saying? Like it was all intertwined. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
he was doing this bit about this is going back in the day. Oh, I'm not gonna remember her name, but you know, this white girl had gone missing in Aruba. Um,
Yeah, I
and it was
remember.
all in the news. So anyway, he kind of wove that into his bit and kind of was talking to people in the crowd. And I think if you're going to do it, that's the way you do it, not just find people to pick on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Well, let me ask you guys this: which one of you is going to be watching the Oscars tonight?
I will watch the recap. I'm not about to sit down for 3 hours.
I'm not watching none of that shit.
Oh,
No, I mean, I watch none of it either, and it's interesting how this is the only way that a lot of people even knew. Oh, was the Oscars on? They're like, oh, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. Oh, the Oscars! I haven't seen that in 25 years, and they kept saying how the viewership has been going down and down and down. And remember, there was the whole Oscar so white thing from years ago, and it's just not something I'm interested in. But it's just now they've managed to get, because of Will Smith acting a fool, now they've managed to get a little bit of bump on this. And some people are probably tuning in because even Jimmy Kimmel said, look, everyone's talked about this already. And some extremely funny people have talked about this. He's like, but I can't say nothing about it. He's like, that would just be ridiculous for me to ignore it completely. So I do wonder what he's going to say tonight. But yeah, like you, I'll have to then see a clip somewhere. I will not be watching.
Just gonna after you check out the Weekend No Show on YouTube, then go over and watch the Oscar. Best moment.
Exactly. Yeah, prioritize.
Yeah. That's what I plan on doing.
I mean,
around 11 tonight, I'll hit up YouTube for somebody will post all the good moments.
Yeah, whatever's the best moment will be out there. If there is such a thing, I don't give a damn who wins what in the categories of whatever. I don't even know what's up for whatever, so I don't care about that. Just let me know what Jimmy Kimmel said about last year's Slapgate.
Well, let me ask this question for our audience. Do you think this is the last that we're going to hear the slap? Do you think Chris Rock is going to let it go? Do you think Will Smith is going to let it go? Or do you think at some point in the future we're going to get some more material to talk about?
I mean, I think that slap is part of the zeitgeist now. Some hacky comedian is going to definitely, bring it up, or, I might bring it up. I don't know. But, it's definitely part of the zeitgeist now. We can't unsee it. And it's definitely, it's never going away.
Yeah, because it kind of brings up so many things about, like, Smooth was saying, do they have the right to say these things? And what happens when we can't say the things that, make people laugh because, you're so afraid of getting punched out or getting, a slap across the face. So, I mean, I think it will always be important. It's going to be a very important moment that we're going to be seeing it constantly referred to in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a permanent part of the culture. I mean, the general culture, not just Black or Oscar culture.
Right.
I remember I used to be a big fan of sort of list shows, but top 10 most outrageous Oscar moments. That's definitely going to be on there.
Yeah.
Adrian Brody, kissing Halle Berry, and then Will Smith slapping the shit out of, or whatever, or Sally Field, whatever. Or
I don't think I know any other ones, but yeah,
I know a couple of. I think Ving. No, that wasn't the Oscars. But remember when Ving Rhames gave his award to, I don't know, it was like Walter Matthau. It wasn't. I'm like, Ving, you earned that. What are you doing, giving your award away to some random actor? Someone who wasn't even nominated, by the way.
But he gave it to Walter Matthau?
It wasn't Walter Matthau, but it was that level of actor. Jack Lemmon. I think he gave it to.
Jack Lemmon.
Yeah,
I do remember that. I do remember that. Yeah,
and I was like, Ving, dude, you've been working hard for 20 years, dude. You showed
you
your
better take
ass
your
in
award, man.
Baby Boy. Take your award, man.
He's like, change my mind. Let me get that back, yo.
And he's like, ooh, you know who deserves this?
That was a good impression. I like that.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. You got any more? You got any more impressions?
No, that's it. I wish I had more. But.
Oh, okay. Well, then on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, man. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode because if there's no more impressions,
you ain't wrapping
I'm
up
out.
shit. We'll come up on that stage and slap your ass.
Yeah. No, hell no, man. I don't know what's going on.
I ain't Chris Rock. got some lead for you.
Yeah. As you recall, I'm strapped up like 50 Cent. Get the strap. Get the strap, man. So we definitely out. You got me? We out.
Yeah. It's over.
It's over, y'all. So please like and share and subscribe if you like this episode. We really appreciate it. And we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Hey, Smooth, man, and Insidious LAT, can you guys say goodbye?
Peace.
No.
You guys see what I'm dealing with here. You guys see what I'm dealing with? I'm just trying to have a respectful show.
Pay me my money, man.
You can't
Pay me
even
my
do
money.
that. This is a volunteer organization.
No, volunteer organization.
All right, we out.